So I'm gonna do a quick video. This is a 2016 Kawasaki Vulcan S650 or EN650. We're gonna be doing a front brake job because the brakes suck. One of the things that you're gonna need, dot 4 for flushing, some brake grease, obviously your pads. We went with double H sinistered. This right here uses about a 10 millimeter to flush out the brake line itself. It looks like this is a 12 millimeter socket for up here and down here. And then we have the C-clamp to kind of reset the brake pads positions. Already broke these two loose using that. So save some time, use yourself an impact gun. Top and bottom are now off, so all you have to do is kind of wiggle this out so we can go ahead and reset the pads. Notice the pads look pretty freaking new, but they suck, so we're gonna replace them anyway. Get yourself some string. You don't want all that weight of the front caliper just dangling and putting stresses on your brake line. It's bad for your brake line. You could use this kind of jerry-rigged method where you just double loop it around just so that it feels secure whenever you're grabbing tools or anything. What we're doing here is we're compressing those pistons down using the pre-existing brake pads. It'll force each side up. You'll have to do this on both sides. For that bottom pin, it utilizes a 8 millimeter that just sits on right there. You'll need to pull those out to pull out the pre-existing brake pads and install your new ones after you apply some grease. So to break loose this one, I did have to reinstall this one temporarily. Now, time is used to use the brake clean. You want to ensure that all of the mating surfaces, including the bolts, are cleaned off before you pre-grease them and reinstall them. Do note that you still have the spring clip inside, and you want to ensure that that is there to keep positive pressure on the pads after reinstall. Once you're done, match up your brake pads as you install them. So this one will go first and this one will go second, and both will be facing each other like this. So each one of the original pads will have this shim. What we do is we take it off of the original pads, we refit it, and then for all of the mating surfaces, we're gonna coat it with grease, specifically that brake grease, right? And we're gonna ensure that none of the pad touches any of that grease. That the pads are in and it's flush, I re-greased this bolt as I threaded it through, and you don't want any of the grease on top of the threads itself because that can loosen over time. And we're just gonna go ahead and bolt that down using the impact gun and then torquing it to spec. What I did is I pre-greased the fasteners, and I ensured that you can thread these in by hand to ensure that they're fully mated and you're not stripping your bolt, right? And you're gonna be wiggling the caliper itself to ensure that it fully mates all together. And then you can just torque it down, and the last part is brake flush, brake fluid flush. Yeah, that. We just finished the Sinister Double H brake pad job on the front, cleaned, inserted the grease on all the bolts with the exception to the threads, and torqued it down to spec. Next is that since you reset your calipers, you have to pump this until you feel that it's hard, and you'll see that the more I pump, the harder it gets. And this is your dot 4 brake fluid filler for the front brake. So we're gonna use our Phillips screwdriver to undo that and ensure that we don't strip those bolts. I used a syringe to suck out the old brake fluid, and I used this Motul. This is what old brake fluid kind of looks like. Usually it's a lot more dingy, so whoever owned this bike before me, this looks more like corn syrup, which is nice and clear. instead of just pumping, I'm going to use negative pressure to flush the line using this syringe that I got off of Amazon. It comes with this hose and an adapter. It hooks up to that zert fitting pretty well, nice and snug. If it's not snug, then I would use something like Teflon tape. And let's go ahead and unthread it and put some negative pressure. The reason why I like this is because you can control it with one hand and create that negative pressure, forcing any of that old brake fluid out. And you want to ensure that you continually flush the line to ensure that there's no air bubbles coming out. And as it pulls and I'm tugging up, it's withdrawing any of that potential air bubbles in the system. And then as soon as you're confident there's no more, then you can go ahead and shut that valve using that wrench. Notice all the little air bubbles coming out. Just make sure at the master cylinder that it's not empty and refill it as you see appropriate. Now, once you're done bleeding the line, I want you to kind of try to turn your fork all the way to the right so you can go ahead and top off this. Obviously, there's a sight line right here to ensure that your brake reservoir is full, and then you can go ahead and give yourself a couple pumps. Make sure it's nice and snug. Like, look how much right here. You hear it click, that's when it engages, and that's pretty solid. Pretty happy with that. Brake reservoir is topped off. Now you're gonna go ahead and put this plastic rubber piece that maintains that pressure as you pump the brake. And then we have this that goes directly on top, ensuring everything mates up nice and tight. Nice sealed all throughout. And then lastly, ensuring that the cap itself is clean. And once you're done, just clean up any sort of overspill. Like I have overspill over here. Hand threading first, and then torquing it down to spec, and visualizing that it is within normal volume for the brake fluid, and that this itself is nice and firm. Now it's time to bed in the pads, which I'll go over tomorrow. EBC has their own bed in process. Notice these are just the fronts. I've yet to do the rears, which there are several videos, but it's kind of upset that they didn't have a video about it doing in the front, and I've never had to change out brakes for motorcycles, so if I can do it, it's pretty easy, right?